What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hold Down the Fort. We are here with your weekly college football episode. We've got the whole crew together today. Michael's here, Ryan's here, I'm here as always, and we had some great games this weekend. An exciting episode that I'm so excited to do with you guys and bring to all the fans watching. So before we get into it, remember, subscribe, like the video, comment what you want to see more of, and without further ado, let's get rolling. I mean, we had a great weekend, and it was, of course, headlined by the Red River rivalry. We had a great version of it this year with obviously Texas being ranked number 3 at the time, Oklahoma number 12. Two of the best, highest rankings that these teams have been in recent memory going into this game, and they lived up to the hype. It was a great game. It was down to the wire, filled with a lot of crazy plays and defensive stands. But ultimately, Oklahoma comes away from this one victorious in an upset. They win 34-30. And just the way they looked, whether it was Dylan Gabriel running the ball, the weapons on the outside, the defense on the goal line stand, it brings the question that I have to ask you guys. Given their schedule the rest of the way, what are the odds that this Oklahoma team slips into the playoffs? Michael, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I also kind of want to shamelessly plug the last episode I was on for. Kind of said Oklahoma was a little bit of a sleeper. I think, I kind of viewed the Big 12 as a team as a conference with two, superior teams in it. I was a big fan of Texas going into the game. I kind of wanted to see them win. I wanted to see Quinn really air it out to Worthy and Adonai Mitchell out there. But Oklahoma really just looked amazing. I mean, you talk about the goal line stand. That's something you're doing against, one of the biggest, most talented offensive lines in the country. And you have to be impressed with what Brent Venables has been doing in year two. Complete turnaround from last year. I mean, the end of that game last year was like 49-0, right? Texas just creamed them. It was a completely different story.
No Dylan Gabriel to note, but he shouldn't be the difference between 49 points.
Exactly. I completely agree with you there. Yeah, no Dylan Gabriel is a fair point, but still, I mean, the complete turnaround is astonishing. And I do think that, if all turns out correct for Oklahoma and they stay consistent, they don't lose a game they shouldn't. They have a decent shot to make the playoff. I think that when it comes down to the Big 12, title game, it's probably still going to be them versus Texas. I don't see Texas dropping another game.
You would think they wouldn't.
So that game's going to say a lot. If Oklahoma can win out and obviously, beat Texas in that title game, I think they have a very, very convincing resume to get in. I mean, you're undefeated. You beat a very solid Texas team twice. I don't see many situations in which they don't get in if they win that big game. Now, the question really is, do you get there undefeated? And when you do get there, do you prevent a shutout? Do you prevent getting blown out the water, right? Because the only situation where they don't make it, in my opinion, not the only situation, but getting completely destroyed in that game really hurts your chances. As long as you keep it close in that title game, you still have a pretty good argument to make the playoff, in my opinion.
That's the thing, though. But I gotta say, just to that specific point, if Texas were to win out and they win the rematch against Oklahoma, this would be 2 one-loss teams, and then you gotta look at resume. And after that game, Texas's resume, because of the Alabama win, would stack up a bit better. I mean, I'm looking at Oklahoma's schedule. They haven't really played anyone up until this point of Texas, and then the only real ranked team you play the rest of the way is 23 Kansas. UCF, if their starting quarterback is healthy, we can say they're frisky, but no one's taking that into account. Yeah. So if you want to say 2 one-loss teams, I feel like Texas would kind of get the edge over them.
Yeah, and I also think that more recent win is a better indicator of who the better team is heading into the playoff. Too. So yeah, I think they probably still have to win that game. I think you're right about that, Sam. That's a good point. But I mean, it looks like they got a decent shot. I wouldn't be surprised if that's another amazing game in the Big 12 title game. But yeah, even the first quarter of this game I was watching was more exciting than any quarter of NFL football I saw this entire Sunday. I don't know about y'all, but it was awesome. It was amazing. The fake punt, a blocked special teams brilliance by both sides. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It was awesome. It was great to watch.
2 interceptions right away for Quinn Ewers. One of them was on him. The other one is just so unlucky. You drive right down the field and it goes off the guy's helmet.
Yeah.
And it was costly turnovers for Texas at the end of the day. Ryan, what was your takeaway from this game? Can Oklahoma slip into the playoffs?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they have the best shot right now out of the Big 12. I'm looking at their schedule. It's There's
It's
nothing
nothing.
they should lose
It's
to.
it's Kansas, and then you look ahead to Texas again. I mean, look, the game is it's what it's at. There's no, you're even at home versus UCF. So whatever little friskiness credit you want to give UCF when their quarterback is playing, you take it away because they're on the road. So it's like you shouldn't lose any of these games until Texas.
No, I agree. And honestly, I think the only way they don't get into the playoff is if they play Texas in the Big 12 title game. Texas doesn't get another loss. Texas beats them and wins the Big 12. They
Yeah.
both have one loss. They're going to go with the recency bias of the recent win and the winner of the actual Big 12.
And just the resume overall. Oklahoma's resume wouldn't stack up to some of the
and
other
you had
teams.
beating a Bama, which
Right.
if Bama is a top 10 team to end, that's on the resume.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, right now, the way that things are trending, I would say they certainly have a shot. You beat Texas once, you can do it again. I'm not quite sure the venue. Do you guys know where the Big 12 championship is held? Like, who would even be considered
Isn't
like a
it
home?
Jerry's World?
Oh yeah, it is. You're right. So Texas would, I guess, technically be the home team, but it's like you guys, we saw the same thing with the Red River rivalry. Like, it's not a home
Yeah,
thing. Like,
and
it's fans
Oklahoma
of
is
both teams
driving
showing out.
distance to Jerry's World, so they would 100% have fans drive
So, I
down. They
mean,
have a big,
it's gonna
following.
go down to the wire. Me personally, I would take Texas to win if they play again, just because Ryan definitely knows from last week. I had them ranked number 1 in the country according to like just my top
Eye
10.
test.
Right, the eye test, the resume, everything. Like, look, I think Quinn's 2 interceptions off the bat were like really damaging, and then obviously you have more turnovers down. So if you clean up the turnovers, I mean, you play this game again, I think it goes differently. So if they do rematch, I'm gonna be picking Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very long time since Texas has won a title game. You got to go back all the way to 2009 was the last time they won the Big 12. So
Yeah, very
that'd
true.
be a pretty historic win for Texas. Maybe you could finally say Texas is back if they win that game. But it's kind of been all Oklahoma the last. Not all Oklahoma because we've had Kansas State and Baylor the last 2 years.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
before that, it was all Oklahoma in that one. But yeah, should be really interesting. Amazing game. That's why we love college football, right?
Yeah, and I'm looking. It's at Kansas for whatever that's worth. So I am gonna look at that game, and then at Oklahoma State, maybe they're frisky, but I mean that at Kansas is gonna be their biggest test the rest of the way. Oh, we'll see what happens. But with that being said, talking about teams at the top of the rankings, I dethroned this team last week to put Texas number 1. I said Georgia was number 2, and they shut me up over the weekend. Ryan and I were both kind of hating on them a little bit last week, but they come out and they just dominate 51-13 after Kentucky had dominated Florida the week before, and they turn around and their momentum got snuffed out real quick. And this looked like the Georgia that we were waiting for. It looked like what we were used to seeing, and it looked like the Georgia that preseason I picked the 3-peat. So, I mean, they looked awesome. The defense looked, there. Brock Bowers and Carson Beck, and the whole offense is starting to click a lot more. Michael, I got to ask, I mean, have the Bulldogs erased all concern for you? I don't know how much concern you personally had, but I know Ryan and I, we had a good amount of concern for the Bulldogs. Have they erased that for you?
Yeah, so I would definitely say I didn't probably have as much concern with the Bulldogs as y'all, just because I know kind of what they are, back-to-back champions. It hates me to say, it pains me to say that, but they were always going to be a really good team. I thought they were getting a lot of unnecessary doubt cast upon them.
Maybe.
And part of that was justified. They didn't look like they were firing on all cylinders, maybe like they could have. Maybe they weren't maximizing those wins and really blowing teams out like we expected.
It was some ugly wins in there that led to the
Yeah.
down. I mean, that Auburn game, they escaped by I can't even do it like this much. Is
Yeah,
how
yeah,
they
I
skipped
know,
that Auburn game.
but I do think that it erased a bit of doubt for me. Now it really is an intriguing question because at the end of the day, it didn't erase much doubt for me. But do I still have questions about this Georgia team? I do. I think that this Kentucky team they played, as bad as they beat us, for whatever reason, I really don't think Devin Leary and the rest of those guys at Kentucky.
He kind of fallen off quick. Speaking of Devin Leary, I mean, he got a lot of hype coming in to save Kentucky and be the replacement for who was the quarterback last
Will
year?
Levis.
Yeah, Will Levis, being the Will Levis replacement, and it feels like it's over. That run's over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Kentucky got a lot of hype for beating a Florida team that just like admittedly did not seem ready to play ball on a Saturday.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
ranked at the time for whatever
yeah,
they
I mean
were.
they got Florida got gashed, and that's all praise to Kentucky. But at the end of the day, if you can stop the run and you're a team like Georgia that's able to stop the run and make Devin Leary make throws outside, that's the kind of result you're going to get. And I think Kirby Smart and the rest of their crew over there, they knew that was kind of the case, and they dialed it up perfectly. I mean, this game was never close, and it's really. I'm heading to Jacksonville in a few weeks here to watch the Florida Georgia
End of the
game, and
month.
I mean, based on these last 2 weeks, it just seems like it might not be very fun for me. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a little bit of doubt erased. Not that I had a lot to begin with, but there still exists a tiny bit relative to the Georgia teams we've seen in years past.
Ryan, have they erased your concern?
Yeah, not to go too much into it because Michael kind of stole my flow of where I was going to go. They have looked better, but I'm not fully convinced yet that this is the last 2 years of Georgia. Are they going to do this against the big dog in a SEC title game or in the playoff? I'm not convinced yet that I can 100% say yes like I was 2 years ago or last year.
And then the thing is, they kind of have like a Mickey Mouse schedule, so it's going to be hard.
Yeah,
we're not going to get a test until the title game.
Well, they have a 3-week stretch after the Florida game of Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, and a week ago those three would have all been ranked teams. As of right now, Ole Miss is 13, Tennessee is 19. Tennessee is on the road, so I'm not gonna say these are great like high-profile games where they're on upset alert, but by all means they are somewhat of a test. Like we saw Auburn play you close, we saw South Carolina play you close, and that was 2 games over the span of 3 weeks with UAB mixed in between, and even UAB put up 21. So it's like. These are going to be tests. What?
It's not a test like the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, what they have to do with their schedule at the moment.
Yeah, me and you talked about that last week, Ryan. Those guys are running straight gauntlets the rest of the year, but these are still respectable teams that Georgia has to play, and you do have to prove that you can put them away before we can say that all the doubt is gone. I got to see you handle an Ole Miss the way Bama did, even though it wasn't a blowout. You could tell Bama was in control. And then I got to see you handle a Tennessee the way that Florida did, where they just kind of, put their foot down and didn't let Tennessee and Joe Milton get that offense going.
Yeah, I mean, also, I would not be surprised if Florida put up a decent fight for 3-4 quarters. I mean, I'm not expecting them to win the game, but I think it'll be a closer.
Not get embarrassed.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's going to be interesting to see.
It just depends what version of the team we see on that given Saturday, but yeah. Should we move on, you think, boys?
Yeah, we can definitely move on. And, last week, Michael, you weren't here for it, but we debuted our new college football segment, Sam's Standings. This week, we are back with the second week. If you guys go tune into the NFL video, it actually just came out a little while ago. We had our second week of Ryan's rankings. Basically, I take my eye test, resumes, the way I look at the rosters. I take everything that I look at, and I formulate my own top 10. And, now I'm going to have 2 people criticizing me and telling me what they like and don't like. We'll see where we agree and where we don't. So I'm gonna pull that up now so you guys can all see. I like my list this week. I think I think I did pretty good with it. I'll say I think I did pretty good with it. Let me just it's giving me a little bit of issues here, but so be it. Week 6, we've got Sam Standings, of course, brought to you by Hold Down the Fort as always. Who fell out this week? USC and Notre Dame. One of these teams lost, so it was only right that Notre Dame fell out. We can all agree after getting thrown around by Louisville like that, which we'll talk about after, you're not a top 10 team anymore. We've seen it. As nice as the roster looks and, as many different kind of looks Sam Hartman is getting, you're not a top 10 team. USC, I just had enough. Every week it's a dogfight against bad teams. It took you 3 overtimes and Caleb Williams being Clark Kent in a football uniform to escape this game with a victory. You're just not a top 10 team right now, and you'll have your chance to show me. These 2 teams play each other pretty soon, and we'll see then just who deserves to be back in this top 10. Alabama, Michael, this is your under-the-radar pick, or not even your under-the-radar pick. This is your national champion pick. But you did put them under the radar last week. You went 2 for 2. I mean, not last week. Last time we did this. Good for you, being 2 for 2 on those. Alabama, you got it done against against Texas A&M, 26-20. Milroe looks like he's coming along. Even Saban said there's progress. Your defense is still very legit, even though you just lost Malachi Moore on the back end, which is that's a loss. You're gonna feel it. But Can Jermaine Burton get involved a little more? Can Milrow start getting these guys the ball? And can he continue to develop to where he needs to be if this team ultimately wants to win out? Because that's what it's going to take if you want to make the playoffs instead of just the New Year's Six.
Wait, so you said they were previously unranked, Sam? In your rankings?
In my top 10,
Oh,
Alabama
okay,
wasn't in my
not
top 10.
top 10. Okay, I see.
Yeah. I'm not saying in general. Obviously, we know they're ranked. Number 9, Penn State. Last week I had them at number 8. It's just a bias, just because, like, same thing with Ryan's list yesterday. Teams are just playing and they're not, but they'll probably move back soon, and they've got Ohio State in a few weeks, so that'll be their chance to move up. Texas at number 8, definitely a big drop. If you, Michael, I know you're all just seeing this for the first time. Last week I had them at 1. They just looked really good to me. They were, handling teams. They had beaten Bama. They had a great resume, a great roster. All this stuff was coming together. They had found their Bijan replacement, and then you couldn't close against Oklahoma. They go right down the field to win it. Quinn, 2 picks, boatload of turnovers that just cost you. And one of the picks, the first one, was just so ugly that, I'm going to keep you in the top 10. You're going to get your redemption shot. But for now, you're number 8. Washington at number 7, same thing. They just moved back one because other teams are playing. They're not. They're on a bye. We all know what's coming against Oregon. That's going to be an amazing game. I'm so excited for that. I know, Ryan, me and you have mentioned this for like 2-3 weeks now. Oklahoma.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Oklahoma moving into the top 6. I would have put them a little higher, but you beat Texas. This is a rivalry game. We both know that rivalry games can tilt in either team's favor regardless of where one is ranked, where the other is ranked. So I want to see a little more before I move you higher, but they look great. Dylan Gabriel played the game of his life. Nick Anderson and that receiving core they're beasts, and Brett Venables has that defense cooking within that amazing goal line stand. You're at number 6. They'll have the opportunity to keep moving up. Now we get into the top 5. So, this is the first 2 out zone, number 6, number 5. Who else is first one's out? Ohio State. Right now I got them at 5. They moved up after beating Maryland. And look, we're all Dolphins fans here. Tua, his younger brother Talia, has been the Maryland QB for a bit. They were good. They were 5-0 coming into he's been pretty good. And they were undefeated coming into the game. They had a really good air offense. They were passing for a lot of touchdowns. That offense was clicking. And then in Ohio State, they gave you a run for your money in the first half. McCord took a while to get going. I've been skeptical of him all year. But hey, in the end, you pull away. You get a good victory. You win by 20, and you do your thing at home because some other teams are on bye, because obviously Texas lost. You get the chance to move up. I've got you at 5. You're the first team out of the playoffs right now. You've got Penn State coming up soon. That'll be the chance to jump a lot of spots if you can win that game. And now we get our first playoff team, the 4th seed Oregon. They move back one again because of the bye. Same thing. Other teams playing. I can say that, we can use the they haven't played much argument, but they played Colorado. They took care of everyone they're supposed to take care of, except for was it Texas Tech? Gave them a bit of a run for their money, but the defense looks really good. Bo Nix is clicking with the offense. They've got weapons everywhere. Dan Lanning's a good coach, and they've got a huge matchup against Washington this week that can really vault them up this standings with a win, because if they win, that's one hell of a resume with beating a top team like Washington. Not many teams other than like Oklahoma can say they've got a resume like that. FSU coming in at 3. There's some may argue there's a touch of bias going into this pick, but I don't know. I'm going to plead the 5th to those claims. They beat Virginia Tech 39-17 last week. The offense was clicking, especially in that first quarter. They took their foot off the gas a little bit. It happens, but I was never, ever in doubt that this game was going to be remotely close. The receiving core is easily top 10 in the country with Johnny Williams and Keon Coleman. We've got 4 deep in the running back room that they get the job done. Travis is a top 10 to 15 quarterback in the nation, in my opinion. And we'll see what happens the rest of the year. Could end up being in the Heisman conversation, but because of guys like Penix and Caleb Williams, I doubt it. But he's a great quarterback. I like the defense. I really like the defensive line. Jared Verse does his thing every weekend. This is a good team, We beat Clemson in Clemson. Not a lot of teams do that. We obviously handled LSU and stifled the offense, which not a lot of teams can say they've done, because look what LSU's offense has been doing every week right now. And we held them down pretty good. So it's a good resume. They do their thing every week. They're at 3. Top 2 teams, Michigan. They were number 4 last week because Ryan and I were kind of hating for their resume. but they just, they manhandled Minnesota. The running backs look great. JJ McCarthy's coming along, and that team is so deep with talent everywhere. Need I say much more? Number one, Georgia. I'd swallow my pride, put them back up here. I'll admit it. I was wrong, all right? I get it. Georgia's clearly the number one team in the country again, and they look right back on path to go get that three-peat. But without further ado, that is my top 10 this week. That is another edition of Sam's Standings in the book. And guys, I got to ask, what'd you think? Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? What'd I get right? What'd I get wrong? Michael, you want to tell me? Because this is your first time seeing it.
Ryan, you want to go first, actually? You can go.
Yeah,
Ryan,
my
you want to
thing
go
is,
part my list?
especially if I go base, I know it's your power rankings, but I don't see FSU right now as in the top 4 in the playoff.
You're saying if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't get selected by the committee?
I don't like how they're above Oklahoma. FSU doesn't have a signature win.
Blowing out LSU on opening weekend is not a signature
LSU became like that.
Yeah, they drop 50
that's
every
like
week.
when people were saying Colorado is going to win it all because they beat TCU, and look at TCU.
Well, these are totally LSU is still ranked. They drop 50 every week. They've beaten Ole Miss and Missouri, who are 2 ranked teams.
LSU is not
They have
ranked.
stars everywhere.
Unless I'm missing something. Oh, they're barely ranked, 4 and 2.
They're a ranked team who's beaten 2 ranked teams, and they lost. They lost to us, and then they lost to someone. Who's the other team they just lost to? Help me out here. Who'd they get their second loss to?
Ole Miss.
Yeah. Ole Miss. Oh yeah. They lost the shootout with Ole Miss, but they come back and beat Missouri. They're dropping 50 every week. FSU's defense held them to 24, and beat them on opening weekend when they were ranked 5th with all the hype. You have a good coach, a good quarterback. Malik Neighbors is a great weapon. Harold Perkins on the defense. We've all this, and that's not a signature win.
I mean, I just think Oklahoma's ahead of them.
Clemson on the road when we hadn't beat them in 7 years, and that's still a 5-star quarterback, Dabo Swinney and everything. That's not maybe it's not the signature win you're looking for, but that's 2 wins I just gave you that are very high quality.
No, I respect that. I just still think Oklahoma should be at 4.
And not to mention, right, okay, I know I heavily factor the resume, but you got to look at rosters and how the offense is playing and everything else too. This roster from top down is deep, it's talented. There are ballers on this offense. You're not gonna tell me that receiving core is not a top 5 receiving core in the country?
Top 5?
Keon Coleman, Johnny Williams, Jaheim Bell at tight end.
All right, dude. All right.
He hasn't done much, I'll admit, but he was a highly touted transfer
from South Carolina, where he also was kind of mid.
Yeah,
but
I don't know, but
I don't know about
those
top
2
5.
guys are.
I don't know about top 5 receiving duo. Keon Coleman, he looks the part, but I mean, efficiency wise, he's had a couple of games where he looks like, I don't know, just
he's had a couple of games where he's looked like the best receiver in the country. So I mean,
yeah, but then there's people like Malik Neighbors and Romeo Dunze and
Malik
Marvin
Neighbors, you're helping my case a little bit there with that. FSU beat Malik Neighbors. We shut him down.
You all right, but here's the thing: you can't compare Keon Coleman to a guy like Romeo Dunze or Marvin Harrison Jr. right now.
I guess, but you also
have Buka probably.
Receivers. We just have a room full of quality receivers who get the job done. And then you look at the running backs: Trey Benson, Toafili. There's another guy in there who's getting more time now. I think his name is Gray. And then you got Travis at quarterback, a good line that's coming along. Fentrell Cypress on the back end to go along with Jared Verse on defense. There's just talented guys.
Yeah, Fentrell Cypress has been playing well. Jared Verse, thank goodness he finally showed up versus Virginia Tech.
He did show. They send doubles at him. They're playing him like he's Myles Garrett coming off the edge.
Yeah, kind of. But I don't know. I think his draft stock has gone down a tiny bit. But to answer your question about the list, I do agree with Ryan. To me, it really comes down to how you're defining your rankings. Is it more based on resume, like the AP poll, or is it more of a power
resume plays a part? But I look at everything. I look at how I see them play week in and week out. You're right. Resume factors into it. I'm looking at the rosters too. I'm taking those into account.
Is it fair to say that your rankings are based on who you think would win? You think a higher ranked team would almost always win against not almost always, but is that kind of how you're basing it? If the team is ranked higher, they would win?
Look, the teams that I have in the top 5, these top 10 teams are all so close. It's not like there's huge gaps between them. So if you're asking me right now, because they're the higher seed, only because of that, if Oklahoma came into Doak and played a game right now, do I think they'd win? No, I don't. I think Florida State could still take them because I've seen Oklahoma play great, But you know this better than anyone,
Well,
Michael.
yeah,
Rivalry games bring out like an absolute different game. Like no matter where you're ranked, rivalry games are a totally different animal.
that's why we love college, right? But
Yeah,
I guess the
exactly.
question I have for you is: does that mean at a neutral site you're taking FSU over every team in the country except for Michigan and Georgia?
Until I'm proven otherwise, right now I'm gonna say yeah. That's gonna
Yeah,
change. Oregon can change my opinion, and Washington in their game they can change my opinion
I mean,
easily.
yeah. I would probably have Oregon and Ohio State above FSU just based on who I think would win in a neutral site game.
I'm,
But
I'm I agree
I'll be
with
the first.
Oregon.
I'll be the first to tell you that FSU probably has the best resume in the country to beat Clemson, beat LSU. Maybe they didn't beat Clemson in the nicest way. It's still a win on their record,
Yeah,
six
on
and
the
zero.
road too.
But
True
some
road
other
games. We
things,
talked about that.
yeah, some other very brief things I would consider changing are potentially having Bama a tiny bit higher. I'd probably put them above teams like Penn State and maybe even Washington, to be honest. I think that, yeah, I'll get to this a bit later, but I'm
Mhm.
not very confident in Washington's ability on the
Yeah, we'll
defensive
see.
side
We'll
of the
see
ball.
with them, but their
But
offensive output has been there for sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, some minor changes, but I think for the most part, it was pretty solid. So I can't really remember exactly specifics on what the rankings were, but I think I remember
Yeah, it
thinking
was.
Bama should be a tiny bit higher, and
Yeah, Bama was at 10, and because Penn State, I think it was like Washington, Oregon, Ohio State, all these teams. But
yeah,
look, as far as the FSU point goes, like me and you talked about this, no true road games. They haven't won. I mean, that was a true road game win over Clemson. That's as true of a road game as you're gonna get. And they came in and won that, and they took down LSU. And it's like, okay, I don't know if they would beat Oregon in a neutral site. I'd really have to see it played out because Oregon's looked great, but they are lacking the resume, which is why I don't quite put them ahead of FSU because that factor's not there. Ohio State, I think FSU would win because I don't trust Kyle McCord enough yet, which he's going to show me against Penn State. That'll be where he proves to me, are you a guy that I can put my trust in? Because Notre Dame was interesting because he's kind of struggled in the first half, and then he came along at the end. I got to see it against Penn State, and that'll tell me a lot about that team.
yeah. Overall, though, I think pretty solid rankings. But you think now it's time to shift over to this,
Yeah,
Bama win over
and
A&M?
speaking of Notre Dame, because I just mentioned them with Ohio State. Not that we have to really dig too much into this game because there's just not a lot of implications coming out of it. In all honesty, just yet. Louisville and Notre Dame played. Louisville snuck into the top 25. Whether they earned it or not, but they were undefeated and the offense looked good. And they come out and they beat Notre Dame. They've got a great wide receiver in Thrash. And the offense is coping, and Malik Cunningham's lost for sure. They're recovering well. And they came out and they beat Notre Dame, and that just brings me straight to my question. I mean, who does this say more about? Is this really showing us who the Irish truly are? Or is this more about Louisville maybe being a team that we haven't quite looked at the way we should?
I'll just go quick because I know Michael
Yeah.
will probably have a more in-depth answer. I did say last week I don't want Notre Dame anywhere near a title game. That's what would happen. They'll embarrass themselves. Anytime they get into a big stage, they embarrass themselves. They lost at home on a buzzer beater. Now I know the week after they did beat Duke, but let's be real. It's Duke. They're not beating Ohio State. They're beating Duke when Duke's on an on year. Like Notre Dame will always be a step above mediocre, but a step below championship level.
Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, I was gonna say, honestly, we learned a tiny bit more about Louisville. I think I was low-key pretty high on this Notre Dame team. Did I think they
Me
were gonna
too.
win the
I was
title?
right there with you. I was high on them.
Yeah. Did I think they were gonna win the title? Probably not. Did I think they had a chance of making the playoff? Maybe. But this Louisville team really showed out. I mean, they towards the end of that game, they were kind of dominant over Notre Dame, and that really showed a lot, at least to me, that the ACC it now has a pretty interesting dynamic, right? You have three undefeated teams in the ACC, that being North Carolina, UNC, FSU, and now Louisville. All those teams were undefeated previously, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, we
it
didn't
really does
expect
create.
Louisville to stay undefeated. That's
Yeah, yeah, and I'm looking at Louisville's schedule, and I mean, they have some tough games, but I do think they're winnable games, especially if you just put away a team like Notre Dame. If you play consistently, they play Pitt, they play Miami down the road, they play Duke in a couple weeks,
we'll
and
see what
then
the health of Riley Leonard is for that Duke game.
yeah, and then they get Kentucky at home to finish off the season. I mean, remember the ACC is now best record makes the ACC title game. It's not
Yeah,
you
two
know
best
No more
records.
divisions.
So yeah, no division. So I mean,
What sucks is that North Carolina seemingly avoids all these teams. Who's on their schedule? They don't play anybody. They don't play Louisville. They don't play FSU. They don't
They
play.
got lucky.
They play Duke, but North Carolina escaping with virtually a free ticket to the ACC championship game just off of playing nobody.
I mean,
So-
they do play. They play Duke and Clemson and Miami still.
That's true. I mean, we'll see. Miami's this week, right, Ryan?
Yeah, that
Talk
should be.
about that game.
Should be
I don't
good.
even know if I'm gonna tune in to watch the slaughter. But it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't know. Maybe this is, I feel like in the back of everyone's head, it's always been okay. FSU's probably going to end up playing North Carolina. In
Louisville
the
could have
title
something
game.
to say.
It might be Louisville.
Could be Louisville.
Now, North Carolina would have to lose to someone because FSU doesn't play Louisville and North Carolina doesn't play Louisville. So one of them is going to have to lose, and then.
Let me look it up,
gonna have
Sam.
to
Let me
win
look
out.
it up while y'all see
But-
what their remaining.
Yeah, I mean Louisville. I was just looking it up. They play. You're right. They play Miami, Kentucky, Duke, FSU. We play Duke and we play Miami. and of course,
UNC just
USC.
plays Duke and Clemson. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, they also have Miami. This weekend. Like we just
this
said,
week.
but-
But we'll see.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I saw this being said on some other platforms. Notre Dame. That's like almost an impossible 3-week stretch to ask you to go undefeated to play. You play Ohio State. It's a huge game. You get your heart crushed on the last second. Then you go to Duke and basically play Duke's Super Bowl, which is a ranked game for Duke. That would have cemented Duke as ACC contender, playoff contender. Then you play Louisville's Super Bowl and they're newly ranked and they're looking to make a statement. And it's 3 straight weeks. 2 of them were on the road. Duke was on the road, and then you go to Louisville. I mean, you were just asking a lot. And I don't want to create excuses for them, but at the same time, like looking back on it, the setup was there for Louisville to emerge out of this game with a win.
Yeah. And then kind of shifting gears to the Pac-12.
The other team that I left out of my rankings.
Yeah, we did see the first signs of some weakness from the team in Southern California, USC, led by Caleb Williams. They struggled this game. The game was 10-10 at the half, and it was a tie game going into overtime, mind you, triple overtime. So I guess my question for y'all is: are they still a contending team in the Pac-12? I mean, you got other teams there like Washington and Oregon. We're going to see what really plays out there this weekend. But are they in the same tier as those other 2 teams I just mentioned?
Going into this weekend, or like going into last weekend, I thought they were. I thought Caleb, I thought the guys like Zachariah Branch, all these dudes that they have littered everywhere. And mostly just Caleb. I thought they could be in that tier with Lincoln Riley as the coach, obviously. The defense is just not good enough. It doesn't matter. I mean, Arizona State, Colorado, every one of these unranked teams competes with you because your defense isn't progressing. It's regressing. You're getting worse every week.
It's
You're
a
letting
Big
more
12 defense.
Yeah, I mean, you're letting more and more of these unranked teams drop 30, drop 40, keep it within a 1-score game. I mean, that's triple overtime. Your defense couldn't get 1 stop. Mind you, they didn't get the overtime win because the defense stopped anyone. They got it because Caleb went for 2. And he pulled off a heroic play to get the 2. I mean, I don't think they can't compete. If you look at the schedule, Ryan and I mentioned this last week, the gauntlet of a schedule that they run the rest of the year. They still play Notre Dame. Who do they get, Ryan? They get Washington. They get Washington.
Oregon's schedule's hard too. All 3 of them have gauntlets.
I mean, it's just I don't think they can. I really just don't think that they can compete the way that they're looking right now. It's bad. I mean, they play Notre Dame this week. I mean, man, for Notre Dame, you just cannot catch a break. That's 4 straight weeks. But after Notre Dame, and then this is at Notre Dame, then you come home to play Utah, on the road versus Washington, at home versus Oregon, and versus UCLA. That's your whole schedule. I didn't just pick the teams. You play every one of those teams in a row except California is mixed in there between Utah and Washington. That's 5 ranked games left.
Yeah. By the way, I think
last 6.
By the way,
I
I
mean,
think it was the opposite. I think they play Washington and UCLA at home, and then Oregon on the road. By the way,
what did I say? Oh, you're right. My bad.
yeah,
Sorry, Washington
no
and
worries,
UCLA.
but regardless, it is a
I
gauntlet.
mean,
Either way,
wow.
it's a gauntlet. Like
I can't see them coming out of that. Like the way they look right now, if Cam Rising is playing, I can't see them being any better than that's 6 games left. I'm almost ready to say 3-3. I think Washington and Oregon will definitely beat you. And then all it takes is Utah or Notre Dame or UCLA. And Ryan and I, we were talking about Washington State, UCLA last week. UCLA showed up. I mean, Dante Moore, the true freshman, is playing his butt off now. That offense is clicking more. That defense looked really good. I mean, that is a gauntlet. I can't see them doing better than 3-3. And that might sound like a hot take. I don't think so. I think that the way the defense looks, those teams are clicking. This is going to be scary for the Trojans going down the road.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to kind of bring up this other segment that we weren't going to do until a little bit later on. But
Yeah.
the question of is the Pac-12 better than the SEC this year?
Yeah, how long have me and you been arguing that? Like
we
since
have,
the
and
spring.
you know what? I will say that at the beginning of the season, when you told me that the Pac-12 could be better, I didn't believe you. And through 5 weeks, I can say that the Pac-12 is probably the second best team in the country, or second best conference in the country. I'm not yet ready to say that they're better than the SEC.
Come on, for 1 year.
I think top to bottom, you look at the talent, you look at who would be favored in these games, in neutral site games. It is still the SEC, in my opinion. And I think that this embarrassing USC win is just one sign of that. I think also, I'll talk about this a little bit more in the pick'ems. I think what you'll see this weekend is there really is only one true contender going to come out of the Pac-12, and I think that'll be Oregon. Yeah, I don't think Washington's defense is ready for Bo Nix and company. I think Oregon's defense is light years better than Washington's defense has been. And I think that'll really show on the field on Saturday. And I think that, because of that, I mean, whether I'm right or wrong, I think top to bottom, and even if you look at the top tier teams.
Is there a little bias slipping into this pick of the SEC?
I would say yes, but if you look historically at who's won the big playoff games, I mean,
I'm not looking historically. I'm telling you for 2023.
Well, history is a really good indicator of the future, and the reason for that is because of the sheer talent these teams have in the trenches. Washington cannot compete with a team like Alabama or Georgia or LSU in the trenches.
Oh, they'll be fine with LSU. LSU lets anybody score on them. You just got to pay a little bit.
Oh, well, I mean, maybe they can beat them over the top, but I'm saying they cannot ever establish a run game against LSU, in my opinion. I mean, that's not their offensive style either, but I don't know. I think
these guys want to air raid. They don't care about running. So
the SEC is still in a tier of its own to me, I think, just based off sheer raw talent. Do I think the gap is closer than before? Yes.
Well, I mean, in the SEC, previous years, we could argue it more, but Georgia, okay, Georgia will be favored to beat anybody in the Pac-12. I'll give it to you, and even they haven't looked great. Alabama, right now, neutral site. Oregon is favored to beat Alabama. You cannot tell me otherwise. Oregon is favored to win that game. The same Alabama that put up 17 points on USF, lost to Texas, and then took the 24-10 ugly win over Ole Miss, even though it was never that close. That Alabama team, yes, Oregon is going to be favored to win. The same Oregon that put up 81 on Portland State. The same Oregon that put up 42-6 blowout on Colorado.
Okay, we're talking about Portland State and Colorado, though.
Well, I'm talking about USF too. So
okay, I mean, you have one bad week. You play down to an
really
opponent. Bad. Bama can hang with any team.
They can hang, but I don't think they would be favored to beat Oklahoma. I mean, Oregon.
I'm taking Nick Saban's expertise and being the best college football coach in history over Dan Lanning in year 2, in my opinion.
I mean, Nick Saban can't catch the ball out there for those guys, but he much less can't throw it.
Whatever, it's close. But
it is.
Ryan,
and I don't want to sleep on Utah because they haven't had their quarterback, so we overlook them. But a healthy Utah with Cam Rising, I mean, mind you, Utah went into a ranked UCLA stadium, or it might have been a home game for them, but they beat a ranked UCLA with their third-string quarterback, beat Florida, who was ranked, with their second and third-string quarterback. That defense is for real, so you want to talk trenches. Those ugly teams like Utah and Oregon State who just win off their gritty defense and their line play, they'll hang. Washington and Oregon will hang because of their offense. I don't even want to talk about USC because I don't got faith in them, but it's Washington State with Cam Ward, all the best quarterbacks play in the Pac-12. The best offenses right now are in the Pac-12. And outside of Georgia, and include Bama if you want, the third through the bottom of the SEC is not favored to beat any of these Pac-12 top teams right now. LSU is not going to be favored. Missouri is not going to be favored. Ole Miss is not going to be favored in any of these games against Oregon, Washington, a healthy Utah, Oregon State, Washington State. UC, all these teams are going to be favored over these bottom tier SEC teams right now.
I'm sorry, bro, but that's wrong. Like,
And if you want to
Ole,
cut off the line at a healthy Utah, that's still 4 teams that are beating every SEC team outside of Georgia
that is,
right now.
bro, that is just not true, bro. Ole Miss would definitely be favored against Washington
Right, the
State,
same Ole Miss
UCLA.
that barely beat Tulane's backup quarterback and
I
that
mean,
got 24-10 by Alabama's Jalen Milroe playing like
bro,
a backup. I mean,
dude, I think there's a lot of hype around like one or two bad games. Like I think on any given weekend, most of these teams are still going to be favored. And let me ask you this:
yeah.
who outside of the Pac-12 has these top six teams you've mentioned really beat? Like impressive
What do you
wins that
mean?
they have outside of the Pac-12.
Oh, who has the impressive wins from outside of the SEC though?
I mean, bro. I mean, I guess that's true. I guess it's a fair
And the
point.
SEC, LSU had a chance to cement a top win, but they didn't.
There's not, I mean, in general, there probably isn't a lot of out of conference games to even.
Yeah,
Be
so I
Bama
mean,
lost to
there's
Texas.
not a lot other than the opening 2 weeks. Most of the games are in conference, anyways.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
Bama
Yeah,
had the chance. Texas had all right. So Texas has the one win from an out of conference. If we're looking at college football as a whole, and that's against Bama. Bama had a chance against Texas to prove it, but other than that, there's not a lot of out of conference games to
hey,
have the chance to do that.
Bama probably still making the playoff and the
We'll
title.
see. They're gonna have to beat Georgia to make the playoff because you're not gonna be a 2-loss team
Yeah.
slipping in.
And Ryan, I noticed you turned your camera off for a second there. I see what hat you're wearing right there. What city is that? The hat,
Hey
Russo
man,
City.
I was in Boston watching that massacre.
Oh my
Yeah, we
goodness,
can't let
dude.
you escape out of here without
Yeah,
mentioning that.
That
that
was
had
terrible. I don't
that
know
had,
how he didn't get fired. The coach. I don't know. I don't.
that had to be one of the worst coaching mistakes I've ever seen in the
It was
history.
horrendous. I don't know how we let him walk out of the stadium. B, didn't fire him. Like
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
ridiculous. How to
now that
throw
we have, now
someone
that
and lose a locker room in one play. In one play.
I mean, also he did this at Oregon.
I saw it. Did that, I guess,
Yeah.
and someone posted a clip on Twitter, and I was like, it's the same thing.
yeah.
That's
Well,
awful.
now that we've established that we're not letting Ryan get away with his team's a horrible mistake, let's get into our Week 6 upset alert. If we take a look at last week, Michael, we didn't get your upset alert because you weren't on. That's okay. Your under the radars did good. Ryan, obviously you had Oregon. I took North Carolina, FSU. Washington State didn't do great. As far as upset alerts go, Ryan, you said Bama, Georgia, and Texas. One of those hit. Georgia and Bama, unfortunately, were not upset. I took Ohio State, Notre Dame, UCLA. Notre Dame was upset, and then UCLA and Ohio State both won. Let's get into this week's upset alert, Michael, because you weren't here. I'm going to go to you first. As far as Week 6 is concerned, who should be on upset alert?
Well, I don't know if you consider this an upset, but I do think because of the way I think the game is going to go, it might be an upset for a lot of Washington fans because I think they're getting blown out of the water.
I think who's favored to win?
Well, Oregon is probably
Washington.
favored to win.
Okay.
Washington by 3.
Oh, it is?
Washington-
Okay.
Wait, Washington's favored?
Yeah, but they're
Yeah,
home. And
yeah,
home, you get
Washington
3
might. Yeah,
points.
so it's an even
So,
line basically.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Oregon to cover and cover handedly and win outright handedly. I don't. I would take Oregon to cover by like at least 2 touchdowns in my opinion.
You have any more for us?
I got 2 teams for you, Sam.
I
gotta
want
see
to
the
get
slate.
the second one from Michael because
Yeah, I
we've got
need
a
to see the
lot of
slate first,
interesting
and then
games.
let me see the slate first, and then
Okay.
Yeah.
Here, I'll pull it up so that everyone watching can see too.
Yeah, perfect.
As we kind of scroll through the big games that we have here, because there's a lot. I mean, we got a lot of good games. I'll start from the top. Georgia, Vandy, all this stuff. Give me who's one more team that you think should at least be on upset alert?
I don't think any of the teams here are on upset alert. You got to keep scrolling for me. That there's
Go to the
nothing.
later games, Sam.
Tennessee, maybe.
Oh yeah. I kind of could see that for sure. Who's favored in the Pitt Louisville game?
Louisville -7.5.
I mean, Pitt might be able to cover that game. I don't know if I'd pick them outright to win. And then I'm assuming LSU is favored to beat Auburn.
Yeah, by 11.
Yeah, I'd probably take Auburn to cover. I don't know if they win outright, but I guess my other upset would probably be A&M to beat Tennessee.
Okay,
I think
Tennessee and Washington are your upset alerts.
yeah, I think A&M has more talent. I think Jimbo is on more of a hot seat than Heupel. I think they get it done, even in Knoxville. So
Ryan, how about you? Give me 2 or 3 upset alerts right here.
Yeah, so I was gonna do A&M and Tennessee, but I'll do 2 others.
Well, he didn't take A&M, so you can take A&M if you. Or
No,
that's the same.
I'll
Yeah,
put
yeah.
that there. But I think USC is on upset alert over
Oh, for
Notre
sure.
Dame.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's actually favored. Yeah, they are. Notre Dame -3.
Yeah, so I
But
think
if you
they're on
wanted to
upset
do
alert.
based off rankings, yeah, I can take USC for
And
that.
then I honestly think Kentucky is on upset alert by
Again, who's
Missouri.
Kentucky? Oh yeah, against Missouri. I'm surprised Missouri's not favored. I think they're the better team.
And then I'm not gonna pick Oregon, Washington because it's so close, but
Yeah.
I do think Oregon goes on the road to win.
And then for me, there's a lot of interesting games. I think Kansas is on upset alert. Oklahoma State played a good game against Kansas State last week, which is still a respectable team, even though they're not ranked. And then looking through, there's a couple that I could kind of pick through that are interesting lines. Most of them are at the bottom. Man, I think the North Carolina line should be bigger.
Yeah,
I'll
no, I
take
was gonna say lock of the week is UNC 3.5.
DJ has been a little underwhelming these last few weeks, even though his stats look good. And UCLA coming off a great week, even though it's in Oregon State. I'll put them on upset alert. This is a good week for them. They can beat another ranked team. They've beaten Utah. And they held it close with a ranked Washington State. So this is a good week for them to prove that even they're maybe an under the radar contender in the Pac-12. Because let's not get it twisted. I know me and you might go debate Pac-12, how much credit are we giving that? A one-loss Pac-12 championship team will make the playoff. Don't get me wrong. That'll qualify you for the playoffs. So as long as you're a one-loss team or no loss team in the Pac-12, you've got a shot. But those are my 2 picks.
Easier said than done. All of
Yeah,
them
of course. Yeah, easier said than done. I'm when I say that, I'm kind of alluding to Oregon State, and if we look at their schedule, obviously UCLA this week, but you look the rest of the year. I mean, they've got Washington and Oregon at the bottom, but not nearly the gauntlet that some of these other teams
Sam,
have.
I want to go on record and say I think the Pac-12 is going to beat themselves up to the point where there's
They
not a
could.
single team that doesn't have 2 losses, and they're going to completely miss out on the playoff.
I don't know. I mean, I think a 2-loss Pac-12 champ is going to get a serious look this year, and that would be.
I'm just putting it on record.
I just can't name 4 teams. I mean, unless if you want to say FSU goes undefeated, Georgia 1 loss, Michigan undefeated, and then you're picking between what, a Bama, the second Big Ten
Ohio
team.
State, one loss SEC champ Bama. Dude, they're not putting a 2-loss Pac-12.
But I don't think they're gonna do the 2 SEC teams thing this year. I think people are over that. I think we've seen what Bama is.
They love the SEC.
And I think you just look at the resume. A 2-loss
right?
Pac-12 team will still have a better resume than a 1-loss Bama.
I mean, I think one Pac-12 team could escape with 1 loss.
Yeah, I don't think. And Sam, I'm telling you, from what I'm looking at, I don't think a single Pac-12 team will win the title without 2 losses.
Well, yeah, I'm saying if that is true, Ryan, I don't think a Pac-12 team.
Let me look at if we look at some. I mean, I don't know.
We've never seen
Oregon. If they escape this game, they should be able to, go to at least to the championship game. But you're right. I mean, it's going to be
if they lose championship, they're done. And then the team they might be playing in the championship might also have 2 losses already, and then it doesn't matter.
Today we're trying McDonald's 2 new limited sauce.
No, but I mean, in the history of the college football playoff, a 2-loss team has never made it, right?
Honestly, though, if I look at Washington, look at their rest of the schedule: USC, Utah, Oregon State, Washington State. Yes, they're all ranked, but Washington should at least be
and a Pac-12 title game potentially.
Right.
Against
if they beat Oregon here and they go undefeated the rest of the year and then lose 1 loss in the Pac-12, I mean that's.
I would also like to share a very hot take that Sam might not like.
Go for it.
I think Syracuse could give FSU some trouble this weekend.
Look what Clemson did to them. Look what all these teams did to them. The second they played anybody who wasn't Navy and SUNY Albany, look what happened.
Clemson beat them by 2 touchdowns, sure, but I don't think FSU is a great noon kickoff team.
And they're in Doak. I mean, this should not. Maybe it's closer than I'd like, but I don't think this should be an issue.
Hey, when the game is causing you some stress in the 4th quarter,
I guess
start of the 4th quarter, I'll be sending a text over. I'll send it over.
All right. Well, is there anything you guys want to add before we wrap this up?
I will be in South Carolina this weekend to watch the Florida-South Carolina game.
Damn.
So,
it's a rattler.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Honestly, both teams are just super volatile. I have no clue what kind of game we're going to get. We could get a blowout from either team. I really have no clue what to expect. I'm excited, though. Maybe you'll see some content if I remember to record some stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, that might be cool. So, yeah, just
All right,
wanted to
well,
give you all that update.
thank you guys both for coming on. As always, it was an amazing episode today. I know we got a lot of good content out of this, a lot of good debates. But that's what we get. We love this. That's why we love this sport so much. Thank you to everyone for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, like I said, turn those notifications on. Let me know what you want to see more of. And we're excited for everything that we've got coming soon. A lot of good content coming to you on the channel. Thank you as always. And, thank you guys, and we'll see you soon.
Peace out.